I'm actually very worried about what is happening with young people, what is happening around stock markets. And I'm glad we have a pretty strong bull market, but it is getting a lot of people sucked into F&O trading. It's a daily lottery ticket. It's an adrenaline shot. Right. And because of social media, there are hundreds of people out there claiming to tell you this is buy this call, buy that put, buy this stock. It's addictive and it's a very fast way of losing money. And sometimes you lose that money in bits and pieces, and you're like, "ठीक है." But if you think of the compounding effect of that money, it's enormous.
So thank you very much, Neil. Thanks for coming here all
Thank
the
you
way
for
from
having me.
Pune.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I believe you are a Pune guy. I never knew that.
Yes.
Okay, so you've always been in Pune and you've got educated in Pune only,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So by the way, what is that education which you pursued in Pune?
So I am born and brought up in Pune. My schooling was there. Then I studied law in Symbiosis. Um, Back when I was growing up, actually, I was super curious about seeing the world. So for me, Pune was boring and small. And now, after so many years, I'm totally at the opposite view. Um, but yes, that's been a big part of my life. And then I've traveled, I've lived abroad, I've stayed in Delhi, I've spent a lot of time in Mumbai also.
So you are now happy being in Pune, right? Now?
Oh,
Back to square.
delighted.
Delighted.
Especially when I think about Mumbai and then how much cheaper things are in Pune.
Completely agree. Completely agree. A lot of people have very good words to say about Pune. I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's a nice place. I agree.
How about you, Suresh?
So I stay in Chembur. I grew up in Tamil Nadu. So then after my
Where in
internship
Tamil Nadu?
in Tiruchirappalli, my father used to work for Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. So I was in the township, nice, good township. So I was in that environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be a hot place, but that township was a nice, leafy kind of a place.
Yeah.
So that was a good place, wonderful place.
Yeah.
So after my 12th standard, I went to Pitch Pilani for education. After that, in 1988 onwards, I've been in Mumbai. It so happened that my father got transferred to Mumbai in 1988, and then I came to Mumbai, and I have been here ever since. I started working for about first 3 years or so. I was working for corporates, and after that, I started a business, and it was in a completely different line, nothing to do with what I'm currently doing.
Yeah.
So I was in the business of software and training resources and all that. I was reselling all that.
Yeah.
That happened till about 2002. And what happened was around that time there were a lot of changes which were happening, which now I'm able to relate. At that time we were importing a lot of stuff from abroad and we were reselling. So now a lot of those companies are either closing down or moving away. So I did not know. It was the advent of internet. And a lot of companies were not able to compete with what was available off the shelf, for free. So they were moving and they were closing down. So since I had a problem in terms of sourcing appropriate resources, which my clients were clamoring for, so I had to necessarily look at alternative options.
Right.
So that was in 2002. Then I looked at all the potential areas, and I found that this to be a sunrise area, financial services. I came into insurance and very quickly transitioned into financial planning.
Yeah.
And 2004 onwards, I've been in financial planning as a financial planner.
Yeah.
So much before the regulation, which came in 2013.
So when you hear of policies like the restrictions on laptops and electronics, does it remind you of those days?
Yeah, in a way, I'm always interested in electronics and those things which I have been doing in the past. But now it's a kind of a sidelight as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It's more of finance and life planning and financial planning, those kind of areas only.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read about the economy, I read about all these various sectors of the economy and things like that. It excites me. It reminds me of those days, 20 years back, what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where would you retire? Like, do you miss Tamil Nadu? Would you one day want to?
No, not really. Now I have spent far more time in Mumbai as compared to Tamil Nadu. I'll call myself a Mumbaiker more than anything else.
Right.
So, in a sense, if I want to retire, I may probably retire somewhere in Maharashtra rather than Tamil Nadu, actually
Right.
speaking.
Right.
So, and probably who knows? I mean, I may continue to be in Mumbai. I don't know.
Right.
But that is not the thought process right now. The thought process is I want to move away from Mumbai.
Yeah.
But it need not necessarily be only Maharashtra. It can be, say, my sister stays in Mysore.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful place. You also told me that you had
Yes.
been on a holiday to
Yes.
Mysore.
Stunning.
So it's a beautiful place, nice small town feel,
Yeah.
but at the same time it has all the facilities, fantastic climate throughout the year. So
Yeah.
brilliant place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, maybe it's Mysore. My cousin is living in Udupi,
Yeah.
so he's saying that Udupi is a fabulous place.
Yeah.
Lot of options. Lot of options are there.
A lot of Bangaloreans tell me that Mysore reminds them of what Bangalore once was before
Yeah.
the crazy growth.
Correct. Absolutely. That's what I also hear.
Yeah.
So now Bangalore is now a bustling city. Mysore still has that charm.
Yeah.
Lot of eateries, lot of nice places, beautiful place.
So do we want to take it?
Yeah. So coming to our line. I mean, you are the editor at Mint, Personal Finance. You have been a veteran journalist. You have been in this space for a fairly long period of time. Very curious to know one more thing before you answer this. Is that, I mean, how you have studied law, and how come you landed up in journalism and personal finance space?
Yeah. By accident, one might say. So, I after I finished law,
Yeah.
instead of doing the practical thing and starting to work as a lawyer, I decided that I wanted to change my career, my field, to finance. Partly because my parents had put this kida in my head that you tell us how we should invest money. They're doctors, they have no idea. And I don't know why they wanted to ask their young kid about it, but they did. Um, so so I was kind of going down that rabbit hole, and then I felt that I need to study this. I need to understand this properly.
Okay.
So I did a second degree in economics, and then I came back, and I actually was working for an RIA for a while, and that's at Value Research had advertised for a vacancy, and it was and still is my favorite financial website. So I applied. I was lucky I got through, and I was lucky that I got an amazing boss in the ring, because a lot of organizations have many layers, especially big ones, and junior employees are not usually treated very well. They're not given much attention. But Value Research is different. It's a small place, and Dhiren personally supervises
Okay.
the editorial staff.
Okay.
So he shaped a lot of my initial thinking,
Okay.
um, and then that set me on this path.
Okay. Good. I'm sure Dhirendra has played a wonderful, very stellar role. I see where you are, so I know.
Thank you.
I know that he has done a wonderful job. I mean, of course, all credit to you also. So now, now you are a kind of a veteran journalist in this field. So what are the changes you have seen along the way? I mean, initially your parents asked you about where to invest or anything about personal finance, and you might have seen a lot of people in that area where they don't know much about it. I mean, they are very competent in their area of activity, but when it comes to finances, they are babes in the wood.
Yeah.
So that kind of a thing. So, yeah, can you just trace the journey from maybe 15, 20 years back to what it is today?
Yeah. So maybe not 15, 20 years, but I can at least trace it over the past 5 to 10 years. Um,
But even 5 to 10 years, I think there have been a lot of changes.
yes, there have. And especially post-pandemic. So I think a lot of things were reasonably static before the pandemic. And then something just took off in that period. And I think essentially what took off is millennials, first-time investors coming into the market, and coming in through the online channel, coming in through videos put out by influencers, coming in to invest in stocks at a time when the market was rising. So their first experience of the stock market was this crazy up move. I remember meeting a family friend, like their young son was doing investing for the first time, and seeing that success was going. So, question is, how did he learn about it? Right? He learned about it through a stockbroker's Uh, so Zilodha Varsity, which is they have modules and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so there is this enormous confidence today among young people and interest in the stock market, almost too much. They haven't seen the full cycle. That is how today's market is a bit different. Earlier, it was mostly older people who had money, who had built up money over their lifetimes, and they were tilted towards real estate and gold. I'm sure you've seen a lot more of this. Um, but now it's them plus the younger folks who are very into equity.
So you are talking about the younger folks. See, as far as the younger folks are concerned, there are two, three things I'm seeing. One of the things is, yeah, they are earning well, number one, and they seem to be knowing how to spend even better.
Yeah,
And on top of that, they are taking a lot of debt.
yeah,
So it's so unbridled hedonism, which we are seeing. I'm not passing a judgment here, but I'm saying that this is what we are seeing, and it is
yeah,
going to have an impact as far as personal finance is concerned.
yes,
So, and there is one more thing which I'm seeing as far as again individuals are concerned. In a non-judgmental way, I'm saying it is experiential. They want to experience things
yes.
rather than own things. So there are four or five things which are there today. I mean, you must have covered this. So, what is your view about the younger generation today, as far as personal finance is concerned?
Yeah. So I think the experiential desire is actually a positive thing because it doesn't tie you down to a particular place or an asset.
Completely agree.
But you're right, there is this enormous push towards consumption because there is just so much choice out there and so much thrown at you. Um I'm sure, 20 years ago, there were just not enough things to buy. Like, what would you spend your money on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
And there's social media. There are people on Instagram constantly flaunting their vacations, their cars, their amazingly brilliant lives, quote unquote.
There is a huge peer pressure today.
Yeah,
Huge peer pressure.
yeah. So I think that is what is propelling the consumption and the debt. And the other thing that propels it is just the cost of living. I mean, in a place like Mumbai, rent alone, anybody who's starting off in most, unless they're at the top 1%, in most careers would have maybe half of the salary just going in rent.
Agree. Entirely agree. And lot of, I mean, so you will be in a place and you'll be spending a lot of time in commute also,
Yeah.
because that is all you can afford.
Correct.
True. So another thing which I'm now hearing a lot, probably it's a sign of the times. It's a sign of how difficult jobs have become, at least in the minds of people who are working today. People are talking about FIRE, financially independent, retire early. But as financial advisors, we find that it's rather difficult to actually make that fly.
Yeah.
So, for example, suppose somebody is, let us say, 45 and they have two children. They have to plan for their children, they have to plan for the retirement. The other goals of the children and their own other goals are still not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And if they want to retire at 45, it becomes that much more difficult. And at 45, when you retire, you have to plan for another 45 years of your retired life. So it's difficult. I mean, what do you see in that area?
Yeah, so interestingly, we are also doing stories around each of these goals.
Okay.
Starting from what it costs to deliver a baby, like what do hospitals charge,
Yeah.
to what are school fees these days, because a lot of parents want to send their kids to IB schools.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that article.
Yeah.
Sometime back.
Yeah, and for a good IB school, it can run into lakhs. I mean, even if you take 1 lakh a year in school fees, that compounds over time.
Yeah.
Then there is higher education, your kids' higher education, which is a big chunk of your money.
Correct.
So that just makes FIRE that much harder, as you say. And the other thing that a lot of people don't anticipate, especially from my generation or slightly older folks in their 40s, is that what do you do after FIRE? Like, what do you do after you retire?
Exactly. I mean, that is the question we ask a lot of people, and they don't have any answer. They wing it. They say, yeah, I'll read newspaper, I'll travel, I'll do this and all that. I mean, you have 24 hours and you have 30 years. What will you do?
In fact, I would suggest the contrary, that it's better to do those things a little bit in your youth when your body is able to let you enjoy all that stuff.
Exactly.
So I had a fracture in April, and for 2 odd months I was confined to my home. And I suddenly realized that if I spend all my youth just saving and being prudent, there will come a time when I'll have the money, but I just won't be able to enjoy anything.
Yeah,
So I might as well take some of those holidays.
You have to strike that right balance.
Yeah.
In fact, that is exactly what we talk about in life planning. See, a lot of people say that I'm really not feeling up to it as far as my job is concerned. I want to give it up, but I know that I cannot probably give it up. I'll continue working till 60, but after that I will do meaningful work. Hello, I mean, how? I mean, you want to do meaningless work for the next 12 years, and then suddenly you will realize that okay, now I'm retired, and you'll start doing meaningful work.
Correct.
First of all, what is meaningful work? So we talk about what is that quality that you want to bring in your life today, like what you said. What is that quality you want today? If the quality is that you want to do something for people, boss, that you can do when you are actually in a job. Also, you can do.
Correct.
Or if you really want to maybe explore music, that is something you can do during your spare time, during your weekends. If you want to travel, you can find a way by which you can actually talk to your employer and get maybe 20, 30 days a year and you can travel. So you have to do it here and now because 12 years from now, we are not sure whether you will be alive.
That's right.
We don't even know next tomorrow whether you will be alive.
Correct.
So that is precisely what we tell people. I mean, and people talk as if job security is a given. That is also not there today.
And also, when people go into their 40s and 50s, usually their parents are in their 80s and 90s. Then you have to devote a lot of your life to taking care of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this fire becomes slightly even more difficult because first of all, job security is not there. A lot of people actually are doing gig work. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying a lot of people, significant amount of people. And a lot of people also say that when I take up consultancy and assignment, I mean when they are in a job, they tend to think that they will have a lot of spare time. Actually, it is the reverse. When you are in a consultancy, you are always pressed for time. You always have a deadline.
Yeah.
You have to deliver that. You have to get the payment, and the
Correct.
payment does not come on time.
Correct.
And then you have to search for the next one. I mean, you are constantly in tremendous amount of stress,
So true.
which people don't seem to realize.
No, I add one more thing.
Yeah.
When you're in a full-time job, you have one boss to keep happy. When you're consulting, you have like 5-10 bosses.
Correct. So it's a difficult task actually. A lot of people say this very. They are very passionate that they want to do something on their own.
Yeah.
And they feel that they will have a good work-life balance, which is like a howler there. I mean, work-life balance in a consultancy.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have the time at all.
Correct.
In a consultancy, you will be working at 8:30. You will be working at 11:30 at night.
Correct.
So a lot of people that is what happens. So it's a kind of a difficult thing. So what else do you see in personal finance? Now you are writing all the time. You are talking to people all the time. You are seeing the trends. What are the other trends that you see?
I am actually very worried about what is happening with young people, what is happening around stock markets. And I'm glad we have a pretty strong bull market, but it is getting a lot of people sucked into F&O trading. It's a daily lottery ticket. It's an adrenaline shot.
Right.
And because of social media, there are hundreds of people out there claiming to tell you this is buy this call, buy that put, buy this stock. It's addictive and it's a very fast way of losing money. And sometimes you lose that money in bits and pieces, and you're like, "ठीक है." But if you think of the compounding effect of that money, it's enormous.
True, absolutely right. I mean, we had a client. I mean, he had come here a few days back. He had been into this stock trading and F&O and all that. He did not know anything, but somebody on his behalf had been doing that, and he had lost about 1 crore. And at one point in time, he had told that person, "Boss, enough is enough. I'm squaring off." Apparently, that other person said that you hold it and we'll do it and we'll recover and all that. He said at some point he closed it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I completely get what you are saying. It can suck out huge amounts of money, and if you add the potential,
Correct.
not just the losses, the compounding effect which you are losing, if you
It's massive.
that, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. So that brings me to the other point, which is financial literacy and education. Well, probably a lot of people who are doing this is probably because of greed.
Yeah.
Okay, but it is probably somewhere a lack of proper financial education also. Would you agree?
It's a huge problem because the formal financial system doesn't have any educational solution for the masses. There are professional programs that apply to professionals. So there's CFP, there's CFA, but they are too difficult for somebody who just wants to have an overview and get some knowledge. So where do they turn to? They turn to YouTube videos, they turn to Instagram videos, which are usually run by influencers who want to make money off you. Not all of them are bad, some of them start out well, but usually it turns into a money spinning machine. Um, and I honestly don't know what the solution is, but today's situation is not optimal.
Yeah, so that is very surprising in one sense, in the sense that maybe 15, 20 years back, uh, the person in the bank or the distributor was the person who was the purveyor of all the information that you will ever get.
Yeah,
He has the brochures, he has everything. Today, I mean, internet is there, and you have an information overload. There are, blogs to. There are so many articles. I mean, you search on anything, you will have a deluge of information.
correct.
And there are a lot of us like me also who have written books. In fact, my book is in a story format, so that it is easily accessible. A lot of people have written very very good books. In spite of that, all this is happening. So how do you pass that?
No, I think the plan that SEBI has proposed, it's not perfect, but at least it will go some way. So SEBI has said two things. Number one, that they will cut off the regulated financial entities, such as brokers, who today are financing the influencers. They will cut them off from the influencers, cut off the funding, and automatically some of this dies down.
Mm.
The second thing is that they say if you give an inducement to trade, then we will come after you. Now it's not perfect because apart from semi-regulated entities, apart from the brokers, there are still unregulated entities which will still advertise with influencers. There will always be the teak plantations and the tax-free solar projects and what have you.
Yeah.
And there will always be insurance companies who will advertise. But it will may have some effect.
Correct. Okay. But I think the onus of this whole thing about educating oneself, um, the regulator can only do so much.
Yes.
I mean, if you are willingly walking into a landmine, there is nothing anybody can really do.
Correct.
I mean, people like you are doing wonderful work. I mean,
Thank you.
the entire media is doing wonderful work. I mean, there has been a sea change in the last 15, 20 years. I have seen myself.
Right.
So much of work has been done by you people, and sometimes you talk to us, a lot of times you talk to us. So, a lot of work has been done. But in spite of that, I am discouraged that it is, I mean, these kind of things are still happening. People are still not realizing about the need to plan personal finances. They are trying to do something. They are gambling away their hard-earned money. So these kind of things are still happening, which is slightly worrisome.
It's always a struggle against basic human instinct, which is
Yeah.
greed, which is fear.
I think that is where the problem is,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
So, wonderful, Neil. I mean, it was wonderful talking to you. Wonderful getting your perspectives. On the other side, normally I get interviewed a lot that way. Wonderful getting your perspectives. I mean, which is very, very valuable. I mean, you are actually having the pulse of the people. I'm dealing with a limited number of clients. In a sense, you are probably dealing with maybe millions of people. And you are having that pulse and you are writing, and so your inputs are very, very valuable.
It's very kind, Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.